Smoky Mountain Magic by Horace Keppert. Chapter 3. The state line between North Carolina and Tennessee runs along the crest of the Great Smoky Mountains, from the Pigeon River to the Little Tennessee. On the Carolina side, the Oconaluftee River, called Lufty for short, comes down out of the Smokies, paralleling Deep Creek, and separated from it by a wooded ridge that rises a mile or more above sea level. On the same June morning that Marion Wentworth visited the Burbanks on Deep Creek, a young man stopped his dusty sedan at a filling station where the highway from Asheville to Atlanta crosses the Lufty. He called for gas. "Fill her up," said he. The gas man was quick-eyed and inquisitive. He glanced inside the car and observed that the tonneau was filled with a big pack sack and boxes of what might be foodstuffs, but certainly were not sample cases. "Campin'?" he asked, by way of being chatty. "Campin'," echoed the driver. "New York," said the man, reading the license plate. "New York," repeated the stranger. "Alone?" "Alone." "Long trip for a feller by himself. Don't you get lonesome?" "Never lonesome. And no, I'm not bootlegging." The gas man laughed. "Mind reader, eh? Well, I'll bet the price of this gas that you've been stopped and searched." "You win. Now suppose you tell me something. Does the highway follow this side of the river all the way to Kittewa?" "No, it crosses on a concrete bridge at Governor's Island." "Can't one take a car down this side from the bridge to Deep Creek?" "Yes, there's a sort of by road, the old detour when they were building the highway last year." "How far up Deep Creek can a car go?" 5 miles to Jim Terhune's place, but the road's rough." "Thanks. Now, what is there about me that looks like a bootlegger?" "It ain't you yourself, but you being alone with all that camping rig. It looks like a blind. Folks don't go camping alone." "I do," said the stranger shortly, and away he went. Beyond the Lufty Bridge, he observed a sign at a junction where another road came down from the north. An arrow pointed up the Lufty from the highway, and the sign read, "Cherokee Indian Reservation, 5 miles." The young man stopped his car and looked wistfully in that direction. "I wonder if Myra is still living," he murmured to himself. "She was a good soul, that Indian." He sighed and uttered faintly, 14 years. The man back at the filling station hallooed and signaled him to keep to the left. He drove on down the highway. When he came to the concrete bridge where the highway crosses the Tuckasegee River, he turned sharply to the right, down a bank, and bumped along over the old detour between the river and a railway embankment. So presently he came to the mouth of a glassy clear stream from the north that debouched here into the Tuckasegee. There was a sign at the bridge, Deep Creek, and another on the farther side marking town limits. Again the traveler stopped. Again he looked pensively at the surroundings. On the opposite river bank and its hilly background, there was a small new suburb. From the bridge, he had no view of the main town, owing to a bend of the road and a bluff ahead. He drove up a grade to the beginning of a street. Before him spread Kittiwah, a village in size, but a city in function, with the white dome of a courthouse showing above the treetops. 10 minutes he lingered here, not entering the town, but scanning from afar, as if searching for old landmarks and noting changes. Highways, he murmured. Paved streets, electric lights, automobiles. 14 years. Then slowly, with head bent over the steering wheel, he backed around and returned to the creek. Here he turned northward toward the Great Smoky Mountains, following the Deep Creek Road. His watch showed 10:30. He had left Asheville at 8 o'clock. He drove up an open valley covered with pleasant farms and bounded on either side by wooded spurs that sloped down from high ridges in the distance. Farmers that he passed gave him only a cursory glance. They were getting used to tourists here in the neighborhood of town. But a couple of miles north from the river, there was a marked change. The valley suddenly contracted to a gorge. The road became rough and rocky. The ridges rose like walls almost from the water's edge. There was no outlook on either side, save here and there a narrow field where a brook came down from the mountain and had formed a little cove. He saw sparse cornfields on the sides of ravines as steep as 40 or 45 degrees. As the character of the country thus abruptly changed, so did that of the inhabitants. These hill dwellers were a different folk from the valley people, less comfortable in appearance, less pleasant in expression, not so preoccupied with their affairs, more curious about the passerby. They stood and stared after him till he went out of view. It was hard going. Twice the car stuck in ruts between rocks, and he had to jack it up and pile stones in the track before his differential would clear. All the way, he followed the winds of Deep Creek, along ravine walls and up and down steep grades, always bumping over rocks, making 5 to 10 miles an hour. The creek hurried over rocky shoals, shot over ledges, plunged into long pools where trout lay plainly visible through 6 to 10 feet of cold blue water. It crowded and surged here and there through narrow chasms, tossing in waves and setting up a roaring that ascended to the hilltops. Presently, the traveler espied a boy walking on ahead, a quaint figure in overalls that came to his armpits and still had to be rolled up at the bottom to keep from dragging. The boy turned and gazed back at the approaching car. He seemed undersized for his age and had an old-fashioned air. His beady black eyes took shrewd inventory as the car drew nigh. "Have a ride?" proffered the driver. The boy hopped in. "Going far?" "Next house," answered the boy. "I live thar." An envelope worked out of the driver's pocket as he twisted in steering the car among the rocks. The boy stooped over and picked it up. Deliberately, he spelled the address aloud. Mr. John Cabarrus, he made it out. Cabarrus, corrected the stranger, stressing the second syllable and sounding it as in barrel. He pocketed the letter. That's your name? Asked the boy, meaning only to be sociable. Yes. Mine's Kittredge McPherson, Printer John Vine Terhune, said the boy, with an air of importance. The stranger emitted a low whistle. You seem to have had plenty of godfathers, he observed. Kittredge was the senator our folks allers voted for, explained the boy gravely. Him and George Washington was the greatest men ever lived. Then McPherson, he was the preacher, married Pa and Ma. Printer John, well, they was 3 John Vines, Long John, Sick John, and Printer John, who run the paper once in Kiowa. Vine was Ma's name afore she married. I see. And now, Mr. K.M.P.J.V. Terhune, what might one call you when he is short of breath? Kit. All right, Kit. Is this the place where we get out? They had come to a broad fork that looked impassable for cars. Across the creek was an old frame house set amid apple trees in a wide yard. The house was 2 stories high, a notable structure for the backwoods, ambitiously begun but never finished. Its unpainted weatherboarding was stained and blackened by the elements. The upper story had neither doors nor windows in the openings left for them by the carpenters when they quit work those many years ago. It was a house to make sensitive people shudder if they passed at night or in stormy weather. The creek's down now, said Kit, and you can ford it in this kyard. Cabarrus was dubious, but as he glanced about, he could see no parking place on the hither side amid the big rocks, nor anywhere to turn. Lots of room in Arns's yard, the boy assured him. But if the creek should suddenly rise, then just wait till it runs down. You're sure I won't flood my car or go too deep for the engine? Well, we-uns has a team of mules to pull you out if you do. I see, remarked Cabarrus sagely. Now then, Mary Jane, said he, addressing the car, let's have no coughing or choking when you get your baptism. They plunged into the water and went chugging and twisting and bumping over boulders till they met the main current, and there they jammed a wheel hard fast between rocks. Hell, exploded the stranger. Set still, said the boy philosophically. Dad's coming. A very tall and attenuated man appeared from somewhere as if summoned by magic. He, too, was in overalls like the boy, but they were 6 inches too short for him. He walked with a peculiar bobbing gait, up and down, and his long legs spanned a full yard at every step. Nonchalantly, he came right into the creek, waded to the car, stooped over, seized one of the wedging rocks, gave a mighty heave, and rolled it aside. Get up, said he, as if to a team of mules. The car went forward. It plunged into a hole, but came gallantly up out of it and bumped along, splashing, to the creek's rim and triumphantly out into the farmyard. "Traveling?" asked the tall man. He was wet all over, but did not mind it a bit. "Yes," said the stranger. "My name's Cabarrus from New York. I'm on vacation and want to see the Smokies. This seems to be as far as I can get with the car. May I leave it here in your yard while I go hiking in the mountains? I'll pay for the accommodation, of course." "You're welcome to leave it here, and there'll be no charge. There ain't nobody'll touch everything you have in the car, unless it's Bupley, that youngest of mine, who's a plumb nuisance about nosing into things that ain't none of his business. That's him coming." The farmer pointed accusingly at a fat boy of 7 or 8 who was galloping absurdly toward them with a grin on his round, moon-like face. "Hello, son," said Cabarrus to Bupley. "Do you reckon anything would bother my car if I leave it here?" "There's a hooty big owl out there in the woods," warned Bupley. "Well, you can scare it away, can't you?" "Uh-huh. I shot a great old cockyoly bird with my bow and arrow." "Oh, what a lie," said Kit. "Did too," asseverated Bupley. "Well," said the stranger to the fat boy, "I'll hire you to guard my car while I'm away and see that nothing is touched. Here's a new silver dime for you, and I'll give you another when I get back if everything is okay about the car." Bupley grinned and seized the coin in his chubby paw. Cabarrus patted the boy's head and assured him, "You'll grow up to be a great man some day and have a cigar named for you." Bupley ran off behind the house, reappeared with a bow and arrow, and gravely mounted guard over the stranger's car. "Come in and rest," invited Terhune the elder. Cabarrus looked at his watch. "Past 11, said he. "I want to get far enough up the creek to pick a good campsite for the night, so it better be starting. Just follow this wagon road, I suppose?" "Yes, it goes as far as Big Tom Burbank's, and you could stop there for the night instead of camping. He'll put you on a trail for that high Smokies, if so be that's whar you're gwine. Better stay to dinner with us," he added cordially. "No, thank you. Time now to hit the grit. I'll be back in 3 or 4 days." Cabarrus lifted his big pack sack out of the car, heaved it up on his shoulders, and ran his arms through the straps. It was a capacious affair, a Northwest cruiser's pack, and stuffed with 60 pounds of equipment. Kit gazed at the pack and took in every detail of its design and material. "I've lived here 12 going on 13 year," he declared, "and I ain't never seed the like of that in my time." "It's a good thing, Grandpa," laughed Cabarrus. "Boy, you don't get lost in the mountains," warned Terhune. "I have a map and compass," said Cabarrus, "and I'm used to the woods." "I wouldn't confidence them government maps too much," advised the farmer. "They're right enough in the settled parts of this country, but up in the wild mountains where you really need guidance, they're mainly guesswork. Trust your own eyes and sense." If there comes a thick fog, make camp and wait. Cloud often settles on the mountains, and if you go blundering around in it, you'll get in a bad fix. There's laurel and cliffs and blowdowns where you can't make a mile in 2 hours, even in broad day, to say nothing about when the fog's so thick you can't see a tree till you butt into it. I'm fixed for 3 or 4 days, come what may, said Cabarrus. All right. Now, don't cross the next ford above here. It's waist deep even now. Keep the trail on this side, and you'll save several fords. You'll soon come to the Lumbos. They's 3 cousins of 'em, Euless, Polion, and Alexander. If they're at home, they'll want to go along and guide you. Suit yourself. If 'twas me, I'd say good day, gentlemen, and farewell. They'd eat up all your rations in 2 meals and tell you 1,000 lies. Bear sharp to the right at the last house and take up a steep high bank. Good luck. We'll look for you back about Friday. Don't be uneasy if I fail to show up till a day or so later, said the young man, and I thank you for your kindness to a stranger. Goodbye. Cabarrus took to the trail, his pack bulking large like an old-time peddler's. Soon he disappeared in the woodland. Terhune and Kit went into the house. Bubbly made a horrid face at Kit's back. He stuck his thumbs in the corners of his mouth, pulled it wide toward his ears, drew down his lower eyelids with his fingertips, turned both eyes inward toward his nose, and darted his tongue in and out like a snake. Having relieved his feelings by this performance, he sat himself down under an apple tree, facing the stranger's car, with bow and arrow in his lap. He was about to drop off to sleep when something roused him to renewed joy of life. A flock of guinea fowl had been pecking and chasing grasshoppers about the yard. An inquisitive guinea hopped up on the running board of the car and made as if to fly to the radiator. Bubbly rose on one knee, adjusted his arrow, drew it to the head, and let drive. By rare luck, the shaft flew true to the mark. It struck the guinea a sound whack directly under its uplifted wing. The bird tumbled to the ground with its breath knocked out. Instantly, all the other fowl set up a tremendous clatter. Kit came dashing from the house with a shotgun, expecting to see a hawk. But there stood the proud Bubbly, puffing out his cheeks and chest, the image of victory in triumphal pose. "There's your cockyolly bird," said he. "Now, darn you, who's a liar?" End of chapter.